that would be working in, like I said, in the hospitals alongside other health professionals. The community, so a nutritionist that would work in the community, we working in schools, even in the GP, promoting health, or with anything to do with the community. With health projects, so that will be again in a laboratory, doing projects and researches. A nutritionist that work in the industry would be do you know on the food? Do you know the labels that you see? So a nutritionist would do the food labelling and the marketing, so anything to do with that in the industry. Their own private place, private practice, so their own clinic. If you need help, you'd go and find a nutritionist, ask for help, seek for help. And charities and voluntary organisations, anything to do with charities or voluntary that will promote health, a nutritionist would be helping. Overseas projects and research again, researching anything to do with new food or anything to promote health in that aspect. And the history of nutrition started back in 400 BC, and it all was with the history of healing through nutrition. And a Greek physician called Hippocrates, he was the first one that thought that food could have an impact on our health, body image and mind. And he thought that with nutrition you could promote health and get better if you've got any illnesses, and promote wellness as well. And so he was the first one that thought that nutrition could be a healing, healing through food. And back in the days, they used to use food for healing. So like they would use garlic if you had an athlete's foot. And in the 1770, that's when nutrition started developing more into a scientific term. And Anthony Lavoisier, he discovered the metabolism. So what it was is that he discovered that by the intake of food, you turn it into the intake of food and oxygen, you turn it into heat and water in your body to provide energy. So he was the first one to come up and, with the metabolism and discover metabolism. And that's where was the first step for nutrition. And in the 1930s was the big growth of the vitamin production in the industry. That's when they discovered vitamins and how much vitamins is important for us and how much it impacts us. And in the 1930s, that's when they started producing vitamins as tablets. And yeah, that was the first industry. And nutritionists, they became the first, they became first working as a profession in the 19th centuries. But they only worked in hospitals and promoting health. And during the World War, that's when they most came out, because of they needed more nutritionists to help with the well-being and promoting health for those. And now the nutritionists in the 21st century has increased by 60%, the profession. And now, as I mentioned before, we work in different environments, and there are over 68,000 different nutritionists in the world. And yeah, so it has changed a lot over time. And us nutritionists, nutritionists would work alongside dietitians, nurses, and psychologists. And the environment that our nutritionists would work with these other health professionals would be at a hospital setting. So if a patient came in, and normally a nutritionist would work alongside a dietitian. Nutritionists are not allowed to prescribe diets, so would be working alongside a dietitian, to promote health, and the dietitian will be prescribing the diet. The doctor will be promoting, like seeing if the patient is well. The nurses are saying, check on them, and the psychologist is to check on the behaviour of the patient. Why are they behaving that way? So then they'll tell the dietitian or the nutritionist how to pass on the information of promoting health. And other agencies that we would work with would be schools and voluntary organisations. So in schools would be promoting health, as in doing presentations for little children, teaching them about the food pyramid and how we should be eating, and working alongside as well the dinner ladies in the schools and helping them out how to prepare the food and how it should be done. And we would only refer patients to other agencies when the nutritionist knows that they haven't got capacity to be dealing with that patient, or if there is any problem that has occurred, or if they've been observing the patient and they've seen that there's another, a problem's occurring, then they would refer it to other agencies. And an example of that is if a patient came in seeking help from a nutritionist, and let's say they had diabetes, and a nutritionist hasn't got capacity to prescribe a diet for that individual. So the nutritionist would only be able to help the patient by giving advice on how to maintain his health lifestyle during that time. But if she observes that his health is at risk, and if he's not having the right meals and dietary plan, then she'll refer the patient into a dietitian. The dietitian would ask the patient for a blood, his latest 6 months blood example. Okay, and so yeah, and then she'll refer it to the dietitian, and the dietitian will prescribe the diet plan. And the professional boundaries in the dietitian for dietitians are divided into 4 parts. So power, trust, respect, and closeness. The power is that nutritionists, we are allowed to have any information of the individual, and we have to pass on that we know what we're talking about and they should listen to our advice. And the trust is we always maintain that trust, but we're not a friend, we're always in the professional boundaries. We should always promote respect, so respecting the patient and the patient's how they think and what they want to do. And the closeness is the relationship between the professional and the patient should never be crossed and always respected there. And one of the laws is says that we're not allowed to be treating friends and family, but if it's a small town we can cross that boundary and we can treat them, but there, so always have that boundary limit there as well and have respect and trust. And the legislation, politics and policy is that the nutritionist title is not protected by law. Therefore, the legislation for the nutritionist and professional, depending on where we're going to work, and we're going to be going through that legislation where we'd be working. But one of the main legislation that we work with is the Human Rights Act, Mental Capacity Act, Safeguarding Vulnerable Groups Act, Codex Alimentary Establishment. And even though we're not protected by law, every nutritionist should be registered by the UK Voluntary Registered Nutritionist, and the UK Voluntary Registered Nutritionist will see if the nutritionist has got the capacity to be a nutritionist, and will look at all the graduates and the gradings for that. And as I said, a nutritionist cannot prescribe diet. And the ethics value is divided into three for the nutritionist. So it's values, practice, and knowledge skills. So yeah, the values would be respect the rights of the individual to make informed choices, ensure that they do not exploit relationship with clients for emotional, sexual, financial gain, be objective and honest. The practice would be respect and safeguard the confidentiality of service use information. Knowledge and skills would be recognise the limits of their own competence. And the questionnaire that I did, I wanted to see if the public would seek help from a nutritionist if needed. And as you can see, 72.22% said that they would, and 27.76% said that they weren't sure if they would. And the latest survey done by England's National Diet and Nutrition Survey showed that 8% of children from 11 to 18 and adults, 27% of adults from 19 to 64 years are not eating the right, the recommendation of 5 a day of fruit and vegetable that they should, and the intake of sugary foods and foods that shouldn't be eaten as much has increased, and that's because it's so much cheaper than eating healthier. And as you can see, the population, even though is not eating as they should, they would be, they would seek help if they wanted to. And the other question that I thought was interesting was if the public knew the difference between the roles of a nutritionist and a dietitian. And 33.33% said that they knew, 27.78% said that they didn't, and 38.89% said that they weren't sure of the difference. And another survey done again by the dietitian, Association of Dietitians in the UK, found out that 60% of people seek for help and take advice, nutritional advice, from professionals that are not qualified to give that information. And as you can see from the statistics, the population does not know and is not informed of what professional can and cannot give that nutritional advice. Yeah.